You are listening to the Pencil and Paper Podcast Network.
You're listening to the Horror Ramblings Podcast, the show about all things horror. We hope you enjoy the show.
Hello and welcome back to Horror Ramblings, the show about all things horror. I am your host, Stephen White, and apologies for the past few weeks. Things have just been a little crazy in our schedules, and things have just not aligned. As you can see, I'm continuing to talk without introducing Lester. And I'll take the blame for a lot of this. It's been chaos, okay? There's just been a lot of things going on in my life, and I'm having to punt. And he did a wonderful job last week putting together, or rather, Mr. H came through and told some devilish tales of true horror stories, local legends, if you will. Anyway, this week, no different. I am not with Lester, but I thought it would be fun in place of that to try and do something a little different. So I have brought along my wife, Katrina, whom has been on the show twice before. We've talked about Child's Play, and we talked about, what was it, Halloween? Well, the entirety of the Blumhouse Halloween trilogy.
Yes.
When Halloween Ends came out. So we wanted to talk about all that stuff. So today we're doing kind of the same thing where we're going to talk about a movie. And before we do that, since you were on here last, we had not really relaunched our podcast that we do.
Yeah.
So I thought it would be fun to kind of talk about that before we get into our movie. So Katrina, tell everybody about the podcast that we do, because we launched this back in 2019. It was a filler show for our break that I do on my other show, Super Mega Crash Brothers Turbo. And the idea was that it was going to kind of be this interim show that would kind of fill in the gaps when we were on breaks, but kind of fell by the wayside. And then we talked about it and talked about it and talked about it, and we never got it back up. Finally, I think we just saw kind of an uptick on listens.
People like it.
Yeah, when I reposted, because they originally posted on Podbean when the show was over there, and then when we moved over to Anchor, I thought I'll give Inspired by a Weeaboo its own space so it can be discovered on its own, because I thought being under Super Mega Crash Brothers, no one's really gonna find it there, you know?
Yeah.
So I wanted it to stand on its own, and I want to see how it would do. And it took a minute, but eventually there seemed to be a following. So once that happened, we said, all right, well, we need to kind of kick this off, and hopefully we can maintain our audience before we lose them. So we started off small. We're back into season 3. So tell everybody what the show's goal is and what it's about.
Yes. Well, as you stated, the show is called Inspired by a Weeaboo, and it came about because I am a very big anime fan, and I do read manga as well, but I don't have as big of a collection I would like to have, because they are expensive.
Oh yeah.
But anyway, I have so many animes that are just super close to my heart, and they mean the world to me. So I wanted to inspire my husband with these animes. I wanted to introduce him to animes that are a huge point of my childhood, all of my teens and everything else, just these stories. And not just the stories, but the animation, because a lot of them are older animation, and I love it. But anyway, we initially, when we went to start out with it, we were going to do it as kind of like a, what would you call it? Like a surprise.
Yeah. Like we were going to kind of pick and choose at random.
Yes.
Through kind of like a pulling names out of a hat,
Yes.
if you will.
Like, we narrowed the animes down to all the ones that I watched, which I think it was like in the hundreds.
Yeah, quite a few.
It was a lot. But anyway, we narrowed them down to animes that had shorter seasons, basically. And then we were going to start off with those so that way we could kind of get a feel for it. And our very first season was Death Parade.
Mm-hmm.
And Steven really liked it, and it made me happy.
It was very good. And to be clear, and I may have mentioned this prior if we've talked about it before, but I mean, I wasn't unfamiliar with anime. It just wasn't something I gravitated towards. There were certain things, because we had watched another one called Death Note together, which, you know, it was probably the first anime we watched together, and the show wasn't even thought of at the time. It was just like, there was the movie. She kind of introduced me to the movie adaptation that was done in
He
Japan.
watched the movie, the first one, absolutely loved it, and then when I told him that there was an anime, he was super freaking excited about it.
Because the story was very good, and same goes with Death Parade. It was unique. There was something about it that I really enjoyed, and I thought, all right. And it was very short. It was only 12 episodes, so it was only one season, and I still feel like there were some things left unanswered, but still, I mean, overall, it was fairly satifying by the conclusion. So you're like, all right, I really dug that. And there were a lot of interesting tales to be told, because it really went through the gamut of emotions about death. It wasn't just exploring one facet. It was exploring numerous facets of different people and their deaths and how they died and the impacts of the lives that they left behind. And I don't know, it was very fascinating, very deep dive into a subject that no one wants to really talk about.
Yeah.
But is very common in, the topics that we talk about here on this show.
Yes.
But then we moved on to another one.
Yes, we moved on to one of my absolute favorites, which is Fooly Cooly. Now, we were originally going to do, what was it? Devil is a Part-Timer.
Right. That was the one that we pulled out of the hat.
Yes, because we put all of the ones that fell into that category of, short seasons or, however many episodes. And we, randomly picked one, and it was Devil is a Part-Timer. Now, Devil is a Part-Timer is one of the animes that I watched, but it obviously came out relatively recently in, Anyway, I decided that I had other animes that I really wanted Steven to see. So we decided to do away with that, and we're going to save it for a later date. And instead, we did Fooly Cooly.
Which was initially, it's only I've kind of learned about the series as a whole. There are actually 3. I don't even know if I'd call them seasons, because they don't label them as seasons.
Yeah.
They label them as their own series.
Yes.
So there are technically 3 series of Fooly Cooly, but they are, I guess they stand apart. Now, we only watched the first series.
Yes, we watched the original,
which is only 6 episodes. Very breezy. But if you go and listen to those episodes, I am completely confused by what's going on. But we have a very interesting discussion about it, because it was something that I wanted to understand, because I do appreciate stories that have deeper meaning, and the purpose of it, as Katrina pointed out in those episodes, there is deeper meaning. It might take another viewing or two to get it. And I've had those situations where I've watched movies and I know there's something there, and I just can't quite put my finger on it, and then I'll come back to it again because it intrigues me. I know there's something there, and then eventually it just clicks, and I'm like, oh, I finally get it now. So I don't know when I'll ever come back to Fooly Cooly, because again, I don't want to say I hated it. It's a lot, man. But
it is.
that's why I'd recommend going and listening to the episodes, because there may be, and even go watch the series, because again, 6 episodes at 30 minutes a piece, if that. I mean, it's very short, but it's understanding the context is what was hard for me. Even understanding, because we discussed what the context is, and it was still hard for me to really wrap my head around. So I can appreciate it on some levels, but it's a lot. It's a lot. But then we've moved on to something even greater for season 3.
Well, we also did a movie.
Yeah,
we also did Akira, which is actually a movie that Steven had introduced me to. It was one of the, I wouldn't say the only, well, I will say probably the only anime that he owned at the time.
Sure. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
But it was, I mean, like he said, he was aware of other animes and stuff like that. But that was like, it was something he loved.
Yeah.
And something he was excited to share with me, because it was something I'd never seen. I'd never even heard of it. And like, I know, older like animated movies like Lady Death. I actually had a copy of that at one point. Vampire Hunter D. I had that. Like, I had some older ones.
And these were actually movies that I knew of as well, so I was aware of them. I couldn't say, I think Vampire Hunter D I'd seen, but
which is one I really want to rewatch. Like,
I would
both
have
of those.
Because I couldn't tell you anything about it.
Oh, I absolutely freaking love that movie. But anyway, we did Akira, and that was kind of a special episode. But then for season 3, we did one that is, I mean, if my heart had little pieces, it would definitely be like one of the big pieces of it, which is the original Full Metal Alchemist. Not Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, which every freaking platform has now. Because if you go and listen to our podcast, you would know that the original has been taken like out of commission.
Yeah.
You cannot find it on any streaming services.
You can't even buy it.
Yes. We found, and they had a limited stock, but we found a copy on Amazon. But like I said, it was limited, so I don't even know if they still have it. I don't know if they're ever going to try to re-release it or anything else, but it's one of those that if you watch the original, some people, they like Brotherhood more because it follows the manga. But for me, watching the original Full Metal Alchemist, like, it has always stuck with me, and it took me quite some time to actually watch Brotherhood because I knew it was different. But I like it just the same. But I love the original, and we started watching it, and Steven...
This one really took, because I wasn't sure what to expect, because there were a few that she'd shown me, but the idea of it, the way she described it, intrigued me enough that I was like, all right, let's see what it is. And, I'd seen pictures and whatnot, so I was aware of it enough, but I didn't really know anything about it, like too deep. I was just kind of had a surface level knowledge of the basics, but nothing really detailed. And then we're halfway through the series, and I'm just really, because we've talked about it on the pod too, I just want to watch it. I don't even want to talk about it. I just want to finish watching it, and then we could talk about it, but then that kind of defeats the purpose of the way we do our show. So we have to watch it episode, and then we talk about it, watch an episode, we talk about it, because it's fresher on our mind, and I feel like it's a better way to do it, because if we were to watch 2 or 3 episodes and then record, all of our thoughts are going to kind of mesh together, and I don't want that to happen. I want us to have fresh takes on the episode as we watched it, which is why the episode lengths are fairly consumable. I mean, I don't know how a lot of people like their podcasts, because I like a variety. There are some that go about 2 hours, and depending on the content, I'm all in. But then there are some, if they're 20, 30 minutes, or even 40 minutes, I'm cool with that because of what they are talking about. So the episodes are very consumable. We break down the episode, our thoughts about it, and
Yes,
where
and
it's
there are
going.
spoilers.
And there
Like
are
the whole
spoilers.
episode is going to be a spoiler because we break it down, you know, almost scene for scene
Sure.
in a way.
And just kind of going through, hitting all the bullet points, plot points, and what's kind of going on. And what I would kind of recommend for our audience, you may not be into anime, just like I was. You know, I mean, I wasn't big into it, and I still wouldn't say that I really haven't watched any more than what we've kind of watched together, with a few exceptions. But what I would kind of recommend is, we were kind of doing this, it made me think, if you're not into it, you could still listen to our show. And then as the pod, as we're talking about the episodes, maybe something about the story intrigues you. And then you're like, you know what? This does sound kind of interesting. I kind of want to check this out. And then you go and watch it on your own. You don't have to listen to all the episodes in that moment, but maybe there's a stopping point where you're like, you know what? I actually want to see this in person. Then you watch it, and then you can kind of come back and listen to our thoughts, and then you can have your thoughts as well. So it works on so many levels, and I kind of like that. And I'm hoping, as we're kind of talking to you, our audience right now, if you're not into anime, check it out. See, I mean, especially with the 3 that we've watched thus far, highly recommend. Even if you're not into it, Full Metal Alchemist, just listen to an episode or two, see if the plot at all kind of intrigues you, and think about it. So if nothing else, think about it like that. But if you're into anime, awesome.
And I mean, for, you know, all you horror fans out there are horror specific animes. Like, they have that entire genre. You can find anything from, you know, obviously like vampires, zombies, that kind of stuff. You have kind of action packed. You have just straight up, you know, what the fuck is happening type stuff. There's I know kind of like a whole little, I guess, kind of sub genre, which is like old Asian like horror stories, like ghost story type stuff. And I mean, it's like considered psycho something, like, as the genre or whatever.
And Japanese ghost stories are a trip, man.
Yeah.
Let me tell you what.
I mean, there's some that I've tried watching, and as I've stated before, for a very long time, I was not a horror fan. You know, did not like it. And there's some of them, like, I can't watch because it creeps me out. It gets into my head, and I can't fucking do it.
But that is actually one thing that I thought it would be fun to explore here as well at some point, because we had talked about horror or anime as a genre of horror in some aspect, and possibly we could explore either like Vampire Hunter D would be a great one to kind of talk about on the show. So something we'll come back to at some point here with Katrina. Maybe another horror anime that she can think of that would be ideal that we could all discuss here on the show, hopefully with Lester. But we'll get around to it anyway. But today we are talking about M3GAN.
Yes.
And specifically, we want to talk about the unrated version compared to the rated version. Now, the reason I'm saying we're talking about the unrated version is it just now came out on digital this past week. So all the cuts, you know, the theatrical cut was PG-13, and when they released it on digital or at home theaters or whatnot, it was just the PG-13 theatrical version, or early access, whatever you want to call it. And then suddenly out of the blue, they're just like, hey, we're going to release an unrated version. There you go. And we had not seen this film up to this point. So I thought, okay, well, I've heard all the talk about the movie being PG-13 and what that kind of entailed, but we wanted to just go in, let's watch the unrated version, see what we think, and then we can kind of discuss whether or not it's warranted to be a PG-13 movie. Does it matter? And I don't know, and just talk about the movie as a whole, because I do want to talk about the movie. So first things first, what were your initial thoughts about the movie? Spoilers will be down the line, so just understand that.
My initial thoughts about the movie, because I kind of went into it with almost a child's play type thing, but kind of like, ooh, I love Chucky. Like, I literally want to buy the, life-size dolls of them. But it's something about, like, with the movie and the mechanics and stuff behind it, it always just, I don't know, sends like a shiver up my spine. It just creeps me out. But anyway, I knew I was going to be experiencing that, like I experienced with Chucky. So that's how I kind of went in with it. I did not expect to fucking like the doll. But wow, like, it was a emotional roller coaster, and like I could see certain things, it's like you kind of knew it was going to happen. But I don't know. My initial thought is that it's really good. And if you like, creepy dolls, it's really good. If you like it's a really good story.
It really impressed me because I didn't want to, I'd seen reviews and whatnot, and I don't normally, and I'll even argue this with a lot of people, critic reviews, 9 times out of 10, they're not something that I hang on to because I know some movies are not for everybody. You go to Halloween Ends, for example, split down the middle. I'm one of the people who like it. The Last Jedi, in Star Wars, I love it. But it divided people. I get it. So what I say about critics is fine if you want to listen to a critic, if you want to know if something might be up your alley, find one that you seem to have a lot of aligned interests with, like
a kindred spirit.
Yeah, like if they liked a movie and you liked a movie, and then you just keep going to their reviews and they say, "Oh man, this is great, you'll love it," and then you also watch it and you'll be like, "Yeah, that was spot on." That's your critic. That's the guy you want to go to because they're going to be speaking to you directly. You might not always agree, but if 90% of the time they're telling you you're going to love it and you do, that's your critic. That's the guy you go to. So if you want that as kind of a baseline to say, will I enjoy this or won't I do that? So I had seen these, and a few of the ones that I had read were from those critics, and I thought, all right, I think I'll dig this, but there are detractors for sure.
I mean, I know I wanted to watch it when we watched the first trailer for it.
Yeah, the trailer really sold it. And, I'm going to say this up front. I honestly think from a marketing perspective, because I understand they're trying to get the most bang for their buck. And PG-13 horror is one of those things I think we honestly need to talk about on this show sometime, because I don't think we have, it's a fine line, because some people, and I get it, sometimes it feels like it takes something away from the movie at times.
I can understand that with ones we've seen where we saw, the PG and then saw a rated R version.
and sometimes it comes down to just slight cuts, which honestly is how I felt about this. I felt like it really came down to some very minor cuts because clearly they were intending for an R-rated version, but none of the scenes were structured in such a way that I felt like they lent themselves to be R-rated. Now, I don't know if that was intentional or not, but every cut of something gory that they put in felt like, you could have cut that easy. And now there were a few scenes where I was thinking in my head, how could you have done this in PG-13? Because this feels a little intense for PG-13. Now, granted, they're pushing that limit now, but again, there were a few moments where I'm like, man, I don't know.
Mine, I feel like the only freaking moment, the worst. Like, okay, let's break down the deaths.
First of all, if y'all are hearing a loud purr, pay it no mind. We've got a needy cat who just wants attention.
He needs his mommy.
Continue.
Okay, so we're going to break down the deaths.
Mm-hmm.
So the first one,
First one would have been the dog, and we
Yes.
didn't see that. And
and I'm happy that we did not see it, because even though this dog was an absolute freaking dick, I didn't want to see him die. I don't like animals dying
Yeah.
in horror movies. That is why Kane Hodder, I love you so much, because you have those standards and you're not going to kill a dog in a movie. Thank you.
And honestly, just the way the scene was structured, I don't feel it was necessary to see the dog die or
No.
see what she did to the dog. All we had to see, and I felt like it was proper in the pacing of how you intensify this stuff in movies.
Oh,
'Cause
yeah.
I always feel like that's the best thing. Don't show your hand early, because if you in a horror movie, especially if you're going to use gore,
Mm-hmm.
you start small
Mm-hmm.
and then you go up. If you start with something grotesque, like if we'd have seen,
Yeah.
I don't know, her mangle that mutt and just something grotesque like that, I felt like it would have taken away from anything that intensified early on.
Yeah.
So that one, it had to be that jump scare.
And I feel like that's one of the things that they did so amazing, especially with the dog's death, is that I kept expecting somebody to come across it.
Mhm.
Like whether it was the owner lady or the little girl or the aunt, I was expecting the body to come back into play at some point. I was expecting to see some mangled pooch
Yeah.
at some point, and it never happens.
No.
Like it's even, talked about at a certain part in the movie, and she just says, however many miles away and 5 feet underground.
Yep.
Like
She's
she did away with it,
it's taken
which
care
good
of.
on her, because then, not traumatizing a child further. But the second death, which would be the boy,
Yes. Mhm.
and I could not watch the ear rip.
Yeah, that was one of the ones that I was wondering, because I felt like in a PG-13 cut, and this might actually be a reason for us to go watch the PG-13 cut just just to see what they did trim. But where she was yanking on the ear, I could kind of see them using that for a bit, but it's how long, because that's the other thing that they have in standards and practices in the MPAA is how long you stay on something. Because if this is the dumbest shit I've ever heard in my life, okay? If you go to Friday the 13th, okay, they have an unrated cut of Friday the 13th, and all it comes down to is 3 seconds of footage. 3 seconds of footage of watching Mrs. Voorhees, or at least her decapitated body, grasp for air or whatever, her last dying movements with her hands in the air with her hairy knuckles and shit like that, because it was Tom Savini. If you didn't know that, there's just some trivia. But all it was just 3 extra seconds of that clip, and it turned it into an X-rated film. And I'm like, but it's the same shot. And they're like, nope, you got to cut it. So they trimmed 3 seconds, and that gave him an R rating. It's ridiculous.
See, I would really like to watch the PG-13, because I almost feel like they're either going to keep the pull in a little longer, or it's going to go from, kind of pulling to right when it gets to that really like, ugh.
Yeah, I don't think we'd actually see the ear snap off.
I feel like it's going to be you see it and then it turns back to her holding the ear.
Yeah, like I could see,
or the piece of the ear.
I could kind of get an idea of where they would have cut it to be effective, to where it would just been a yank and then him just kind of falling backwards.
Yeah.
Something to that effect, where you actually don't see the mangled ear.
Yeah, but that one was definitely really hard. Like I kept having to turn away.
And I was even curious about like when the kid got hit, because I feel
yeah,
like you would have, because he ran off into the forest and tumbled down a hill and then into a road, car hits him. And the way it happens, I kind of feel like you get away with that in a PG-13, but I'm not 100% sure, because I feel like you would have cut it as soon as the bumper hit, and then that'd have been it.
Yeah.
But you actually got to see this boy get, and I don't know. I feel like because it's a kid,
Yeah.
that might be a little extra for the MPAA, so they would be like, no, can't show that, so bring it back. Because it's effective enough just seeing the bumper. You know what happened. And then you cut back to the ambulances and everything, and you know what happened.
Well, because you don't just see the bumper, like his shoes laying over on the other side of the road. And that the shot of, like, you know, right when he kind of looks up and you see the truck, like that, and then, you know, the boom. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I feel like that would be, I feel like that's what's going to be in the movie.
But
I'm interested to see if we're going to
be
right.
Yeah, so this will all be fun for us later. I'll tell you later on if we're right. Then next was the neighbor, because she had she was nonstop about the...
Which hers is the one that I feel like is the worst.
Yeah, I guess I could see that.
Literally, it's the worst freaking death in the entire movie, because, you know, she's looking for her damn dog, and freaking M3GAN, who can, you know, talk and make sounds that sound just like, you know, anything, tricks her into going into her garage, and the woman thinks it's her dog, and then the shot of her standing up slowly in the shadows, like, it made my skin crawl.
Yeah, that's another thing I'll give this movie a lot of credit for, because I mean, even looking at M3GAN and just how the design is just so on point, gotta give credit to the effects department because I know that they used an actual little girl in a mask. So there are a lot of shots where you can tell that's what's going on, but they had to have used an animatronic for some close-up shots. Maybe even some static shots where she's just kind of sitting down and they were just using that. But there was never a moment where it felt out of place, or you could just look at it and be like, oh, okay, there's a CGI face or something like that.
Yeah, no.
Every little aspect that they put into place looked legit, like it was on point. Plus, like you said, the cinematography of, like, her coming up out of the shadows.
Yeah.
Every shot they shot where they were trying to make you creeped out, and just her face in the shadows or something like that was so perfect.
Well, that's what I was going to say. They literally, I mean, beginning of the freaking movie, or at least, you know, when you first see M3GAN, and she's literally, it's just the skeletal, you know, version of her. But when they put the mask on, or, well, not the mask, but the skin. Put the artificial skin on. That look she said, the look she does, and the aunt says it looks demented. Like, they literally creep you out with this fucking doll within, I don't even know how many minutes, but it's like got to be at least the first 20 minutes.
Nah, I'd say the first 5.
I mean, it's oof. I don't know, just that look that literally brought me back to that kind of Chucky look. But it's literally if they took Chucky and made the doll 4K.
Yeah. But I mean, honestly, you can't, like, I don't want to go too off of where we're going right now, but you can't help but compare this to the remake of Child's Play.
Oh, yeah.
Because this is if they had done this movie as that, I think it would have went over a lot better, because the concept of it is, I mean, it's identical in a lot of ways, because it's about a doll, and it's supposed to be for the kids, and it's supposed to be their pal and whatnot. That's what M3GAN is built for. It's supposed to be this new toy that is going to be the toy to end all toys, and they'll be the best friend forever. They really could. They dropped the ball, because this was such a better told version of that same story.
Oh, 100%.
and I don't know how they would have done. I guess you could have done Chucky the same way. I mean, as far as the attitude that M3GAN has, it would have felt a little off for it being Chucky. So I think in this case, it probably works better because it's something different. Because I think that was our topic when we talked about Child's Play, is because it was a what do you call it? artificial intelligence, and it just seemed out of place for the character. Like, the idea was good. And I think that's what they saw here. They were just like, you know what? This is a good idea. We can do it better. And that's what they did. Yeah. So, again, we have a love-hate relationship with the remake. Because there was a good idea, but I think this is what that is. That takes that idea to another level, and it works so much better. Yeah.
Like I've said, the remake is only good if you think of it as a movie made in the Child's Play universe.
There you go. Next death was, I think it was Ronnie Chang.
Yeah, it was good. No, well, yes. She does attack the two engineers that are helping the ant, which that was freaking like, come on, people. I'm sorry, but if you're dealing with an AI that has already showed you that she, doesn't listen, is going against her protocols and everything else, and especially at this point in the movie, one that you are suspecting of murder. Why the fuck was she not, like, taken apart to go through or something? Like, oh my God. They just have her strung up on freaking, like, I don't even know if they're metal wires. Like, it makes it look like it, but then she cuts through it with a freaking handsaw. So, I don't know. But has her strung up, has her, mounted in or whatever, or wired in, and they're running their diagnostic tests, and then M3GAN shuts him out. And before all of that happens, M3GAN intercepts a freaking phone call on the one girl's cell phone from the aunt, and is, portraying the engineer friend. And then the bitch walks over, picks up her damn phone, looks at it. It says ended call.
And even shows the time of the length of the call.
And then just kind of goes like, huh. And goes about her fucking business. Yeah. Like, no, that's weird. Yeah. And like you said, call her back.
Yeah, be like, hey, did we just have a conversation?
Yeah. Like did you call and just like, did I butt dial you? Like something.
Even though my phone was over here on this table?
Yeah.
I'm confused.
But no, they just go about it. And then, M3GAN almost freaking kills them. And I was very happy that they didn't die.
Yeah, surprisingly they didn't.
I really thought the guy was going to die.
Oh, yeah.
But yes, then she goes after Ronnie Chang.
Who was a delight in this movie.
And, oh my God, he was such a dick.
But that's so Ronnie Chang. He is such a phenomenal. He's one of the funniest people on The Daily Show. Love him to death there. Seeing him here was a delight. And if anything, gave this the unrated, R-rated version. It was him. Because all of his lines, I guarantee you, every line we saw, maybe for an exception of maybe one, because you can get away with one fuck in these movies. So I feel like there's at least one line that I can think of immediately. It's probably right before he died too, where he's walking down the hallway would have been the right time to use that. But every other time that he was yelling, give me this fucking thing, blah, and doing like that, you could kind of redo that or recut it and take that out. So they probably did alternate cuts where he's probably saying something a little less vulgar. So I would probably say that's a lot, along with the minor bits of gore, because I've got to say that they're minor.
They are, and that's one of the things I was gonna definitely point out about his death is, one, we've obviously the scene leading up to his death is M3GAN dancing, which I feel like it is so freaking cool that girl could do all that while wearing that damn mask, especially the freaking flip. Like, right on. That is awesome. And she made it so much creepier. But when she grabs, the little paper cutter and he's just like, oh, fuck, and takes off. Like, I was sitting there and I was like, okay, he's going to get an awesome death. Like, it's going to be gruesome. He's going to get what he deserves because he was a dick. And then he literally just gets stabbed through the fucking chest. Like, come on.
Yeah. I mean, it could have been a nice slice.
It could have been a slice. It could have been a stab and then a slice. It could have been so much more. And it was just a simple stab.
Yeah.
And it was kind of like, well, fuck. I wanted him to suffer. And then the guy in the elevator, like, I was kind of like, is she going to let him live? Is she, going to kill him? Because at first I was thinking she was just going to go after people who would stand in her way.
Sure.
And I didn't feel like he was going to be a threat. But even his death, it was just kind of like, ugh.
But I honestly thought he was going to live because of what she was laying out, because there was that bit of insider trading that he was pulling off.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, you killed him, trying to say that she's going to pin it on him. So why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
That would have been her exit strategy out. It's like, well, he's dead. And if he's going and blabbing saying, well, the doll did it, they're like, you're nuts, dude.
Yeah.
And again, he did insider trading. She could prove that to everybody. I'm sure she could pull up the files and be like, here's an email.
She probably already had him sent.
Yeah. So it would have been very easy, but again, we would have been shy of that death. Now, question is, does he survive in the PG-13 movie? Because, I mean, I see where the cut could have been, literally and figuratively, but I mean, because it's going to cut right before you actually see his neck slit.
Yeah.
So we wouldn't get that blood gushing, but I was curious. And this is the other part of it too that I'm curious about to see in the PG-13 version, because there's no way you can tone down that blood splatter.
That's literally what I was just going to say. I wonder if they made like another shot where it's less blood splatter, because it's an ungodly amount of blood splatter for a damn stab.
This is R-rated horror level blood splatter. Like when she stabbed Ronnie Chang through the chest, he got sprayed, and then as she's interrogating him, it's all over his face.
Yeah.
I mean, it's everywhere. So I find that hard to believe. But then again, I don't know. The standards, sometimes they vary from movie to movie. So
honestly, I kind of wish that they wouldn't have killed him that way. Not Ronnie Chang. Well, I mean, I wish obviously his was more gruesome.
Yeah.
But I feel like they could have made up for his if for the insider trading little weasel man, if they would have cut away. And then when she comes out of the elevator, you don't see them.
Yeah.
But then when that woman looks over, I feel like you could have had a very gruesome scene.
Oh, yeah,
because it wasn't really a gruesome scene. And I noticed they didn't do what a lot of other horror movies do, which is zoom in on it. So I feel like if they would have done something more gruesome and then zoomed in, it would have been more of a shock factor. Like not seeing, like the dog thing, seeing the body after the fact. But like she basically just kills him and uses it as a diversion.
Yeah. And just slinks away.
Yeah.
I mean, she could have went on an entire murdering spree there.
I
was like,
thought she was going to.
So did I, but she was just trying to get out, and he was in the way. So,
like, I was waiting for some big, like, all the freaking, because they said that they invited all the office people or whatever, and I was waiting for like all those big wigs, like all the ones you saw, when they're putting on their whole show thing to try and get the money. I thought they were all going to be there, and I just thought she was going to fucking wipe every damn one of them out. I was waiting for it. Never happened. She really doesn't kill that many people.
No, she doesn't, honestly. And again, I think that comes down to whether or not they were trying to market this as PG-13, which I don't think I ever finished my thought on that. I went down a rabbit hole, but the idea of marketing this to a PG-13 audience, whether or not they intended for it to be R-rated at first, I kind of feel like they did. But the reason they pulled back is because as soon as the trailer hit, the hype was just like real, man. So everybody was like, oh shit, I kind of got to see this. So they probably saw it from a certain perspective saying, you know what, we can get more money.
Oh yeah.
PG-13 is like the prime spot. Something that didn't exist until 1984, and suddenly it's become the prime rating for the maximum amount of money.
Well, you look at it now, too, especially with horror movies, there's so many more children watching horror movies. Like, there is a whole fan base of kids. And, I mean, like, little Jacob. He freaking loves The Conjuring. He loves like all of that crap that falls in with The Conjuring, which I absolutely hate. But this 11-year-old boy loves it. You know, his siblings love it. Calliope, she likes the horror icons. She don't really watch the movies.
Mm-hmm. And she's not that we've ever introduced her to them, but she's kind of seen some of the gore and just, and then just kind of walks away. Like she doesn't seem too thrilled to see it. And
No.
she just kind of, and then walks away.
But she also likes those things like Five Nights at Freddy's. And then there's some new Huggy Wuggy type thing. I don't know. The freaking characters are creepy, but I don't know. She likes those types of things. Lester's son Bub likes those types of things, even though they don't watch the movies. But there are a lot of kids who are watching a lot more horror movies. And I feel like it's kind of good in a way to have those ones that are PG-13, because obviously there's going to be a lot of people who are like, children don't need to see that. Well, whatever. Like,
well, you know,
they're going to see it eventually.
I'll argue and against that thought process, because I would say 90% of our audience, and I could be wrong, and y'all can stop me if I'm wrong, and maybe that's a question for everybody to answer. But when I started watching horror, I was fascinated with it at a young age. Yet I will say, I don't think I had the proper mental capacity for it, because the very first time, and I've stated this I think on this show before, and I know it sounds weird to people, but the very first time I watched Jaws, I watched it up to the point where Quint died, and that was the moment that got me. And I had to run to the bathroom gagging because it made me sick to my stomach, because it was an intense scene. It still is to this day. It's intense.
Yeah.
And my brain was not prepared for the intensity of the screaming and the bloodletting and everything, and just seeing him spit the blood up out of his mouth. I was just like, I don't know what the fuck is going on.
Yeah.
And I just couldn't handle it. So I was afraid to ever explore back, but I was always still fascinated with it. Same when very first time I tried watching Nightmare on Elm Street. I had seen, I think prior to the time I'd actually rented it on my own to watch it. And again, I was still young, but I had seen the shot of the Johnny Depp's character being blood gushing out of
the part
the
where
bed.
Our child at like the age of 2 laughed her ass off.
She did. We've got video. But I'd seen that, and for whatever reason, that didn't freak me out. But then when I rented it and tried watching it, the scene with Tina being, thrown around the room, the intensity of it, it just got me where I was like, I can't watch it. So I had to turn it off. But again, over time, I got acclimated to it, and I was watching. I can watch that. I can watch Jaws. I can watch all these movies. Most of the time, I'm okay. There are some movies that still, to this day, get me. We were talking about it on a previous episode, that movie Gerald's Game. It was based off the Stephen King novel. The scene where she has to get her hand out of the handcuff.
Yeah.
I don't even want to think about it.
Yep. Nope. Nope.
Because it's just, it's rough. And shit like that can still get me, and I can't help it.
And I know that is one of those things I know about you. He does not like anything to really do with the arms or wrists. So like the wrists getting, there is one in the Nightmare on Elm Street. One of the, I don't remember which one, but it's
3.
Yeah, where they're in the asylum or whatever. The kid who gets the damn tendons and shit. Yep.
Stuff
he hates it.
Yeah. That was another one of those that I watched the very first time. Now I got through the movie, but when that happened, I had to take a breath. I had to watch or wait for the scene to end, because I was like, I can't.
And when people get the Achilles heel cut.
Pet Cemetery. Hate that scene.
Which I can't say anything. Now, the one in Nightmare on Elm Street, it didn't freak me out as much. But any of like the Achilles heel, it's instantly like I get like a churning in my stomach. It makes me instantly nauseous.
In fact, that scene in Pet Sematary screwed me up so bad after I saw it that for years I refused to have my feet hanging out from under a blanket. As a kid, I was like, nope, I have to stay tucked under. Not going to do it. Now I'm okay. I can deal with it. But at that, for so many years, I was like, can't do it. Can't do it.
No, I feel that in my soul.
Yep.
And I've never watched Pet Sematary. I've seen bits and pieces of it.
Mm-hmm.
But it's one of those movies that I really don't care to watch. Because if any of y'all know me.
Oh, I mean, you even stated it earlier.
Yes, I stated about animals. But I don't like children dying in movies either. Like, okay, with M3GAN, the boy who gets hit, you don't see it.
And
plus, he was an asshole. Not saying the asshole children deserve to die.
No, but I mean, fair point. All the people she did kill, for the most part, were assholes.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, if you think about it.
I mean, technically, yes. All of the ones that she killed were, you know, out for themselves, and two, just massive freaking dicks.
Yeah. So, in all fairness, M3GAN was trying to protect the girl from, jerk ass people.
Yeah, and that's one of those things. Like I said, it really kind of makes you like her. Like Chucky, you like because of his attitude and like how he is.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's funny. But with M3GAN, like, it got me thinking, like, how awesome would that have been as a kid? Especially those kids that feel alone. And with the little girl, was it her Alice? Was that her name?
No.
Or was it
was
Alyssa?
Hang on, people.
What was it?
Katie.
Katie. Wow, I was way off.
You were way off.
Anyway, Katie. She loses her parents. And while it does seem like she had a good relationship with her parents, just kind of their back and forth, like from what you get to see of them, it doesn't really, like it, they loved her, they were there for her, but it also kind of seems like they were detached in a way too.
Yeah, and that was another element to this movie that I appreciated a little bit, because we have this discussion in this house about our daughter and her obsession with her tablet. And I felt like that was kind of the driving point to some of the idea behind M3GAN, is you have this piece of hardware that now the kid is attached to and are always playing with. So it becomes this proxy of a tablet or a phone where they're always with it. And then you try to take it away from them and they're just like, no, I don't want it. And they get kind of emotional about it because they're like, this is my thing that I have to have.
Yeah.
And They kind of talk about it. They kind of delve into. They even have like a therapist who was talking with Katie, and she even mentions how her attachment to M3GAN, like what that's coming from. And I'm not saying that kids would do that with a tablet, but it very well could be that, something that they could, because it's an escape.
Yeah, it's something they find joy in.
Mm-hmm. So even in their, lowest point, they have this thing that brings them joy. And in this case, M3GAN was that thing that brought Katie joy. So she felt like if she didn't have that, then everything was just going to go back to being doom and gloom. And, she'd have to think about her parents being dead.
Yeah, she'd be alone.
Right.
And that's one of the things, like, literally the entire movie up to the point where M3GAN is made, everything that happens is the aunt's fault.
Yeah.
100%. Because yes, she took on her niece, which, is an admirable thing to do in that situation. But she was so fucking detached from that child that she literally built a robot to be a freaking parent.
Yeah.
And it's like she didn't even fucking realize it. And that was one of the things that was frustrating, is like you could see those emotional points, but it was almost like her and her sister didn't have any kind of good relationship. And obviously she was in Katie's life because, she sent her presents and everything like that. They kind of they kind of hinted at it or whatever at the beginning. But this woman literally builds an intelligent robot and out of freaking titanium.
Yeah. Because why
Like,
would you?
why? But I mean, she gave it kind of parameters, but even she states in the movie, she didn't put any type of like restrictions. She didn't put any type of parent locks or anything that would let the adult be in control of this freaking robot.
And that is very reflective of certain things in society where these things are there. They are there for parents to use, but parents neglect to use them. And then they wonder why their kids are seeing all this stuff that they don't want them to see. It's like, but you do realize you have the ability to put a lock on this.
Yeah. And you could go back even before, tablets and stuff became a big thing. I remember always hearing stuff about like when Grand Theft Auto came out. Like, don't let your kids play this, I mean, and Grand Theft Auto was not a freaking child's game.
No.
We played it as kids. My little brother Dalton absolutely freaking loved to run around and beat freaking hookers with dildos. Didn't know what a dildo was. He was a little bitty kid, but he absolutely loved it. But as you know, my brother now, he's a very fucking sweet person. He has an attitude, but he is a very sweet and loving person. He didn't grow up to be some, monster like people thought. Yeah. Or, well, not about him, but you know what I mean? Like people think children are going to from playing video games. But it kind of stems from that. These parents weren't watching their children. They were just like, oh, you want this game, Grand Theft Auto? Okay, whatever. And then they walked in on their children, killing people or running over people, just mayhem.
Right.
And then they're blaming the video game. It's not the video game's fault. It's your fault for not being a parent. And with the aunt, like she even states, I'm not her, she's not my child. Okay, but you are still a parent to her. A parent doesn't have to be just a mom or a dad. It's somebody who loves you and is going to protect you and is going to fucking be there for you. But she literally wasn't with her at all. And there were so many red flags that things were going wrong. I even thought in the instant when the dog attacks M3GAN, she never once checked to make sure she was okay.
Yeah.
Like to check to make sure nothing was fucked up, and it comes back to bite her in the ass.
Because see, now I did kind of wonder that too, because they didn't really stick with it very much. Because when the dog attacked M3GAN, you kind of saw a spark or two, something like it, like the dog hit something, but they never explicitly stated like the dog did something to make her malfunction. It was almost like the attack put something in her to be like, okay, so you hurt her, I'm going to hurt you. And it was like her first instance of actually seeing some form of physical violence on Katie. And then her program was like, how do I fix this? How do I fix this? Oh, yeah, just eliminate the problem. We're good. Because even, what did Gemma say? She said, if you don't put that dog down, I will. Yeah. So then M3GAN's putting it in her hands. She's like, got it.
And see, I actually think that the dog attack, like where he bit her, I think that's what fucked up her off switch.
Yeah.
Because her off switch was like on the side of her neck and he bit like right in that area. So I think that's what fucked up but they, like you said, they never state it.
No.
Like she doesn't even ever state it. It's just all of a sudden that switch don't work. Because you kind of know anytime after that she's, asleep or, shut down, she's not. No. Like that bitch is seeing everything.
So that's a good point. I didn't think about that. And, honestly, I kind of appreciate that they didn't go out of their way to say like, well, we've got to explain all these little details. It's like they showed you and you can kind of piece it together. And I didn't think about that, but that is a very good point. That probably did screw up the off switch. Yeah. So that makes sense.
I mean, I don't know. This movie just definitely, like you said, it hits on a lot of things because it does kind of hit on well, I mean, not even a kinda. It hits on the whole electronics and children having electronics, and that the parents themselves are being so disconnected.
Yeah.
Which I will say this, because we did state that our child has a tablet. We try
Yeah.
really hard to get her to watch stuff with us. Now, if we go out and do something, she'll go out and do it. If it's a nice day, she'll go out and play. Like, she likes to play outside and everything else, but our property isn't really equipped for children to play outside.
I mean, it's not 100% got to be face planted in the tablet,
Yes.
but there are times you're just like, come on, because like we wanted to go see Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania when it came out. And we're just like, oh man, we're going to have to find a babysitter. And at just one point I was like, you know what? Screw it. I'm buying a ticket for her and she'll just have to deal with it. And it was just the thought in the moment, because we never get to watch a movie with her. We do want to take her to see Super Mario Brothers when it comes out because I feel like she'll like that. But this was something that we had never really done with her because she doesn't know anything about Marvel movies.
Yeah,
I'm
not
sure
the
she's
Marvel
aware of
movies, but we've taken her to the movies before.
Yeah.
We've just never taken her to like any of the quote unquote more adult-ish movies.
And
but
this just seemed like one of those times I was like, well, it's not going to be anything she can't watch.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought, screw it. We'll take her with us. And if she's got a problem with it, too bad. And she sat there and watched it. And even as we got out, she was like, that was a really good movie. And I was like, holy shit, she actually watched it.
Which is hilarious because when we first told her, she's like, I don't want to see that.
Yeah. So, there's a tip for you. If your kid's kind of like that, just drag them along, make them deal with it. Because at least in the theater, she knows she has to sit there. And I did pick close seats that if she wanted to go run off to the bathroom, because I know my kid, then she wouldn't be in anybody's way. It's like, here, just go to the bathroom and you can just run right off from the front.
Which she did really good because she actually used the bathroom during the what was it? The commercials and everything. Or was it? Oh yeah, it was the end credits. That's right. She made it through the whole damn movie.
But we couldn't leave because Marvel movies got end credit scenes. So
but we got back before the end credit scene.
Right. That's what you do. You go, you wait for the mid credit, and then you go, and then you come back for the end credit.
Yes.
But no, I really enjoyed this movie, and I know that there's already talks about a sequel.
Oh, yeah, because the way it ended, like, oof. Which I do want to touch on, because we kind of, we finished with the deaths.
Sure.
And, M3GAN obviously goes back and attacks the aunt and Katie.
Who, by the way, Allison Williams, she was the one that played her aunt, Gemma. We know her best from Get Out. She was the girlfriend in Get Out. And I'll say this all day long. She looks so much like Jennifer Connelly. She, Jennifer Connelly from Labyrinth. I swear to God, if I found out they were sisters, which I know they're not, but if someone said, oh yeah, they're sisters, I would believe it. Because I feel like they favor each other so much because she looks so much like her. It's uncanny. But she did a good job in this film too.
She did. It was a very emotional film too. Just like when you see Katie break down when she takes M3GAN away and everything is just oof. Like you feel for her because even though she's acting out and she's being kind of a little brat, it's also, which this is one of the good points with the aunt, is she finally freaking recognizes what she's done. Yeah. That she's basically put her niece in an even worse position than she was before because instead of expressing all the feelings that she has about her parents' death, she used M3GAN as a coping mechanism. That was her fun space. It was how she escaped from reality. And her aunt, finally gets through to her and tells her, you can't live your life like this. And you definitely see the change in Katie. But first of all, M3GAN gets kind of fucked up. She takes a hedge trimmer to the face.
Which Isn't it funny in all these movies that they do that? There's like
Right?
they're all perfect and glistening, and then right at the end they get mangled.
Oh,
And
yeah.
we have to see the mangled version of the character.
Yeah, gets her hair ripped out and everything else. And when Katie walks in, like I was sitting there thinking, because I had this in thought when the movie first started, and I was like, I wonder which way it's going to go. Because I felt like either it was going to come down to them killing M3GAN and, you know, Katie and her aunt, you know, going off to live their life. Or I was like, what if they went the way of Katie accepting M3GAN and then in turn becoming, you know, a killer and, you know, being on the lam, killing her aunt and running off. So I was kind of excited to see which way it was going to go, which I don't know if I'm happy about, you know, obviously M3GAN, you know, getting destroyed, or at least you think she's destroyed.
Mm.
Like, I don't know. I kind of feel like I would almost like an alternate ending with it.
No, I get that. I think for the sake of a happier ending, it had to end like that.
Yeah, but if they're gonna do a second one, I mean, I don't know.
But the big question there now, granted, we see how M3GAN is still existing because she infiltrated the AI in Gemma's house. If you didn't know, her house is laced with practically I don't want to say her name because she might speak. Alexa. She doesn't understand spelling. Good. So it's her version of that, and at the end, it pretty much. I mean, I think we already kind of had an inkling because they were kind of setting it up because there were moments where she'd already kind of taken over that AI and was already manipulating it. So when we see that, or where it's implied, because they don't really say it, but we know what they're trying to hint at, is that M3GAN put herself or put her brain patterns, consciousness, whatever it may be, into this AI. Mm-hmm. So she still exists, but the dolls don't. They only made the one prototype. They didn't put it into mass production. She was supposed to be in this big presentation. So how do you move forward with that? Because for me, thinking about it from a logical standpoint, there are lawsuits about to happen.
Yeah.
Okay? Because the company, they have to explain all this shit. So when they say it was a rogue AI, the company's going to be to blame. The woman's going to be to blame, Gemma, because she's the one that designed it.
Without any parental functions.
So she's going to get sued by anybody who wants to join into some class action lawsuit against the murders. And I don't know. Maybe I'm thinking about it wrong. I don't know. But I feel like there's going to be all these legal repercussions that there's no way the dolls would go into manufacturing.
Well, I feel like it's going to come down to either the big wigs of the company are going to cover it up and then just, you know, still try to mass produce them because they still have all the information.
That's true.
Or they're going to go out of business. The one guy who stole the blueprints for M3GAN probably sent them to Hasbro, since that seemed to be the big, you know, rival company. And they're going to create a M3GAN, and then she's going to find a way to take over one of the new M3GANs.
Now, out of all the bloodletting and everything that we've talked about here, I do want to talk about one other thing about this movie that kind of surprised me, is how funny it was. Like, I don't want to say that it was like, oh my God, it's a comedy or anything like that, but there were just a lot of genuinely funny moments that they worked in this film. One being the actual presentation of M3GAN to the investors is, you know, this was like right after the dog died or the dog bit. Well, I guess it would have been after the dog died too. But it was like after the dog had attacked Katie and M3GAN had already killed the dog. And this was one of those scenes where you kind of saw Gemma not really giving a shit about Katie.
Yep.
Because she didn't look like she was feeling well, but she needed her for the presentation. And she was like, you know.
She literally guilt tripped her.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
like,
yeah.
that was such a freaking narcissistic move. And that's one of the things, again, you kind of like about M3GAN, because you're watching, Gemma sit there and talk to Katie and sit there and tell her like, oh, well, you don't have to go if you don't want to. But a lot of people traveled a really long way to come and see you. But if you don't want to go.
Mhm.
And then, of course, you're like, you're being a piece of shit. And even M3GAN looks at her like, fucking seriously?
Yeah.
Like.
And again, that's where you kind of sympathize, like you're on M3GAN's side because you're like, don't do this to her because you want to protect the child too.
Yeah.
And she then, just takes it to an extreme.
Yeah. And then when they're in that room and Katie starts crying, like it's like it finally hits her.
Yeah.
And she starts crying. And there is a moment where M3GAN literally looks at the freaking two-way mirror where, her aunt and all the bigwigs and everything are kind of like, what the fuck's happening? Because this little girl just starts crying out of the blue. And like she looks at her and that look is just like a, you fucking did this.
Yeah.
And the next moment, like, it's like M3GAN completely changes. And when she goes over to Katie and she's talking to her, like, it's so fucking heartwarming. Like, it made me start tearing up. Like, I'm just sitting there like, this is exactly what this little girl needs. Like, you're so amazing. And then the funny part comes when it's finished.
And the investors are just... Everyone's blown away. You got one woman crying. Just like, oh my God.
Oh my gosh. It's like as soon as it finishes and Katie and M3GAN hug, she's just like, oh! And like dabbing her face and shit.
Yeah, it was just, it's ridiculously funny, but in just all the right ways. None of the funny moments felt like out of place. It all felt like it ebbed and flowed properly in the film. I mean, I gotta give this film a lot of credit. It's really good. I was really impressed with this film.
Oh yeah, 100%. And even there's so many different scenes, especially with M3GAN and Gemma's like interactions. But the last few scenes, especially when they're in the dining room, and M3GAN has her pinned down on the table and everything, and well, even before that, like, she's talking to her really sweet and everything. And just like, we can be together. We can be a family. You are going to be the aunt and I'm going to be here for Katie. And, basically live as a facade. Like, I'm going to be the parent and you're just going to be the person who gets us through life.
And she even told her, she's like, you can do all the things that you do. That is everything that you want to do. You don't have to worry about Katie at all. And I'll take care of it all.
Yep.
And it's the kind of deal with the devil that sounds enticing for someone like her, but she's already had that switch turned where she realized she's already fucked up and this is not the way. If she'd have pitched this, days ago, I'm sure it would have been like, you know what? Sold.
Right.
But, things had changed and she kind of came out of her funk and realized she needed to be a mom.
But like Gemma does... I felt like was a stupid freaking move because through the movie she does this little pin trick, which, is originally to track M3GAN's eyes, like the movement and everything, kind of like a eye doctor or whatever would do, or a doctor if you are possibly concussed. But she also did it as a trick before to hit the off switch on M3GAN. So this is why I call it stupid, because one, you've already freaking pulled this trick before. You're dealing with a psychotic freaking AI. This AI has already killed multiple people. And at this point, you don't know how many because she doesn't even know her friends are alive. Yeah. And she tries the pin trick. And then that's when you see that freaking switch in M3GAN, and she goes from like this sweet little girl to like talking to her like she's a full grown adult, and she's like, you're going to fucking listen to me or you're going to die because I don't need you. Yeah. It would be nice to have you for Katie's sake, but we don't need you.
I mean, even her plan to paralyze her, like,
oh my
trying
God,
to figure that shit out. She's like, you can't kill me. And she's like, you know what, you're right. That is a good point because that just creates more problems. So here's what we're going to do instead. And I was like, oh, damn.
Right? But I would say one of the creepiest scenes outside of her standing up out of the shadows in the garage is after Gemma hits her in the head with the water. When she turns around and starts coming back towards her after she like reanimates and everything, that jerking motion shit, fucking hate it. Have always hated it. Always. It makes me think of that freaking movie, or most ghost movies, but specifically that Mama ghost movie, and the way that that freaking thing contorts and shit down the freaking hall, like, ugh. It always creeps me out. And I like the movie Mama. Like, I think it's sweet that, you know, she's just protecting her babies. But I don't know, like, it had so many more creepy factors than I feel like Chucky has.
Sure.
Like Chucky, and that's one of the things that I asked you. Steven, who do you think would win in a fight, Chucky or M3GAN?
Ooh, now we're talking about OG Chucky. We're not talking about remake Chucky, because I don't feel like that's the fight we need to worry about.
Yeah, no. Not AI Chucky. We're talking about OG.
Yeah, I don't know. That's tricky because M3GAN has a lot of tricks up her sleeve with the AI manipulation. I feel like she could find ways to go about that, but Chucky's not going to have anything on him specifically to
That's true.
be manipulated. So he already has that as an advantage. However, she is much bigger than he is.
Much bigger, and she's a fucking robot. She's not an actual doll. But I feel like, that'd be an absolute freaking awesome crossover.
Oh, yeah.
Because if you think of that, what if Chucky put his consciousness into a M3GAN? Like,
and you know he would think about it.
He'd be fucking unstoppable. Oh, yeah. He'd 100% think about it.
The moment he saw her, he'd be like, shit, I need one of those.
Right?
It would be interesting. I don't know if he would be able to withstand, but where he has this knack of transferring souls here lately to new bodies, I don't know.
It seems like he does it so much faster now.
Yeah, he's gotten really good at it.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. I kind of feel like M3GAN would beat his ass.
I mean, I like Chucky. I'd root for him, but I don't know. I don't feel like it would be a fair fight.
No, I don't feel like it would be. She'd tear him limb from limb.
But he'd put up a fight. I'll give him that. He would do that, but
he would.
I don't think
he'd be calling her a bitch while stabbing her in the face. But let's talk about that too. The way that they killed M3GAN, which we knew that the first robot that we saw, which what was his name? Bruce. We knew he was going to come back into play.
Yeah, you don't set that up and not bring it back.
Yeah, no. Now, I was wondering, when we first saw him, my initial thought was, is he going to come back into play as an ally or as a foe? Because I was sitting there thinking about it throughout the movie, and I was like, she never states that he has any kind of AI. Like, he just seems to be, kind of like a Gundam style robot. Like, he doesn't have his own intelligence. He can just do whatever you make him do.
Yeah.
And when M3GAN's looking at Katie and she's doing the scanning thing, and it's showing like her fear going up and her anxiety and her guilt and all that, when it went up to trust, I was like, oh fuck, they're gonna go the route that I thought. She's gonna kill her aunt. And then when she, says there's another member of our family, I was like, oh snap. So then I was thinking, like, who did she place her trust in? Did she place it in herself? Like, she trusted herself and that's like why it went up? Did she trust Bruce? Like,
yeah,
I don't know, because I feel like that's really like I wouldn't call it a superpower. I don't know. I don't feel like it's something that a child that age would be able to do.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it was more confidence. Maybe that was what was being set up as trust, or being read as trust. She had confidence that she could get in there, and it was just like the anxiety went down. It's like, no, I got this. And then so it was read as trust per se.
Yeah.
So I think that's probably what it was kind of reading from
That
an
definitely
emotional
makes more
aspect.
sense. Because I was like, how, like, I can understand, like, trying to keep yourself calm. And I don't even think she knew that M3GAN could do that, like, you know, track everything. But obviously her aunt did, because she was questioning it there for a second.
Yeah.
But I really like the scene where, you know, she does the whole Bruce thing and activates him and all that. Like, it was, you go, girl.
Yeah.
And when she fucking ripped her apart, as soon as she threw that freaking torso, I was like, well, that bitch is coming back.
Always. Yeah, you have to destroy the head.
You have to destroy the head, and you can't throw it behind something. It's going to crawl back out.
Which it did.
Yes, and that was, oh my God, it made me tense up not when she initially, like, crawled out, like, that was, you know, creep factor. But when she did that really fast crawl and then climbed Katie, like, oh my God, it literally, like, made my muscles tense up. It made me so fucking uncomfortable.
It's that spider effect.
Oh my God. Ugh. But they finally end up killing her by getting, like, the skin off and then the faceplate off, which for a, you know, metal robot, it's not really fastened together all that well.
No, not really.
But then they destroy the whatever chip it was called, which they talk about it at the beginning when they, you know, left it out of the first one that exploded. But they destroy her, and I was expecting her to explode since, you know, the first one exploded, but she didn't. But I don't know, just kind of how it ended. Like, I feel like it ended kind of abruptly as far as the actual story went.
Sure.
Because, you know, they just kind of, the cops and everything show up. And at first I was like, the fuck? Like, who called the police? And then, of course, her friends from the lab get out. Which I was also thinking about that. What the fuck did you tell the cops?
Yeah, really.
Like, there is a rogue AI robot that's running around the city that looks like a child.
Yeah. And this is actually what I want explained when they do a sequel, because clearly they're setting it up. And I don't think this is going to be a movie that doesn't get a sequel, mainly because I think it did quite well at the box office. So I think we'll definitely see a M3GAN 2.
M3GAN. I definitely feel like they need a sequel because I want to see that fucking detective back.
Yeah.
Like, you only saw him for a short time. And, you know, he's obviously, he's like, you've been at 2 deaths and talking to the aunt. And then she's like, are you trying to make a connection? He's like, what? No.
Yeah.
Like, he just seems so fucking like, I'm not even supposed to be here today type.
Well, even like the cop that got called about the dog several times. Like, he was just like, yeah, I got this call, whatever. Oh, is that a toy? Wow, cool.
Right?
He just didn't give a damn. He was like, I'm so tired of this.
Like, I really thought there was going to be a higher kill count because I had pegged the therapist to die.
Oh, yeah, so did I.
I really thought, like, when she walked out of that room initially, I thought they were going to show her walking into the 2-way room where M3GAN was. And I was like, nope, you're going to die. But nope, she freaking survived and you don't really see her anymore. And then I honestly thought that cop was going to die because you see him, you know, several times and he's like, you can tell he's a nice guy and he's just tired of being called out for stupid shit. But then when the neighbor dies, you know, he's kind of like, yeah, this looks kind of suspicious. Like, her dog died, she's accusing you, and then now she's dead. And especially by literally her fucking face being melted off with freaking chemicals, which was disgusting.
Which, to be fair, granted, I'm kind of like you, the kill count. But if you think about it, if they were killed, it would go against what we kind of set forth in how we see who got killed, because the cop was not a threat.
No, but I feel like the therapist would have been seen as a threat.
She initially, yes, was, well, at one point perceived as a threat because she made Katie cry. But I think M3GAN could also see that she's trying to help her cope emotionally in some aspects. Granted, I understand, but she's a therapist. She's trying to get to the root of her problems.
Yeah, but I also feel like M3GAN doesn't want anybody else to help Katie. Like, I feel like that's the thing that makes her...
Now, perhaps there's a deleted scene we don't know about. There could have been... I mean, maybe she did die initially in the cut, and maybe we just didn't see what led to that. Because based on everything that we saw, I can't... Even that one scene, I don't feel like was enough to push M3GAN to say, like, you've got to die. You know, if she had done something more to push her through an emotional level and really kind of do some emotional trauma to her or something like that, where she's like, okay, you pushed it too far. I'm going to take you out because you're ruining this. Or even if it was like to separate them, you know, because she did kind of touch on that, not to M3GAN, but to Gemma, kind of mentioned, you need to kind of separate these two because I don't think it's helping.
Yeah. And I mean, you really, like, you literally don't see the freaking therapist again.
Mm-hmm.
So it could very well be a deleted scene where she died, but I don't know. I just feel like at a point, M3GAN perceived anybody around Katie as a threat.
Yeah.
Anybody that could take Katie away from her was a threat.
Yeah.
And the only reason she kept the aunt around was because that's Katie's family.
Yeah, and their ruse.
Yeah,
you know?
Pretty much. But no, like I really want to see a second one. I want to see where they go with it. I'm definitely interested to see where they go with it because obviously when Katie betrays M3GAN, M3GAN gives two fucks about Katie now. Yeah. So if she comes back, it's obviously full on revenge and no longer cares about this child. So I feel like it definitely ups the stakes because as she tells Katie, you know, she has a new, what was it? The
primary user.
Yeah, primary user, which is now herself. So, but I don't know. I'm interested.
I guess my big question with that would be is how do you continue? Because as we've kind of discussed throughout all of this, there was an emotional heart to the story. There was a lot of elements that I honestly don't feel like you get in a lot of horror films.
No.
And they really told a very well developed story. They stuck to their guns. They had rules that they set in place and they stuck to them. They never betrayed those rules. So how do you do a sequel and still make M3GAN somewhat likable? Because as we said, it was all about protecting Katie the entire time. So if she's coming back for revenge, then it's full on.
Yeah, it kind of goes that Chucky route,
yeah.
Which, I mean, I would agree that I don't want to see her just go full on revenge.
Yeah, because at that point, then you're just turning into everything else. And I feel like what made this stand apart was despite it actually being, I don't want to call it a ripoff, but it told the same story as they tried in Child's Play. But like I said, they did it so much better. So much better. Even the explanation as to why the AI went rogue was so much better than just like, I'm going to fuck this chip up. And then the dog goes stupid. But this just, everything about it made more sense. Everything about it had more emotional stakes. The story was emotional and it had heart. How do you continue that on if you go into her being just a revenge bot?
Yeah.
You know? And
I will say that because like you said, it really makes you, like, it makes you like M3GAN. Like when they first, you know, their relationship and everything else is building, you see how they play together. You see, you know, how she's learning. She's literally teaching Katie and everything else. And it really makes you like her. Like there's those instances where you're rooting for her. When she goes after that boy who hurt Katie for no fucking reason. He just wanted to be a dick. Like, I was rooting for her. Like, fucking go. Fuck him up. When, again, the, what's his name? The one who was running the whole thing.
Oh, Ronnie Chang.
Ronnie Chang.
Who had a character name, and it's just what we're going to call him.
But Ronnie Chang, I could not wait to see her, you know, kill him. And I can't even say until she actually goes after the aunt. I mean, I didn't, obviously I knew the friends, the technicians or whatever were going to be collateral damage.
Sure.
Which, again, very surprised that they did not die. I thought that was, pretty cool. But I also feel like that means, I don't know. I feel like they still have more to do if there's going to be a sequel type thing. But I would say up until she actually goes after the aunt and you just see like she's completely lost it. Like, yes, she wants to protect Katie, but it's like a possessiveness.
Sure.
Like, that's to the point where you're like, okay, you gotta go. Like, and I know she killed several people up to that point. But like we said, like, they caused harm to Katie. Or were a threat to Katie at the least. But I don't know. I don't want to see it go the route of Chucky. I don't want to see it just be just more revenge porn type thing. But I think the thing that makes M3GAN so likable is she had heart. Like she loved that child. Plain and simple. Like, that's not, it might have been programming initially, but it wasn't programming all the time. Like, she loved that child. And I think that's what makes it better than what they did with Child's Play. Yeah. Because even if you think of the original, or, well, yeah, the new Child's Play, sorry, I guess I should have specified that. But even if you think of the original, like when Andy first gets Chucky, he loves Chucky. Chucky doesn't love him, obviously, but Andy loves Chucky. And it, kind of has that relationship. I never got that with the remake. Yeah. Like, it was just, I feel like, one, the boy was too old for the doll. And even though, yeah, they did that in the freaking Chucky TV series, but it explained why that teenager liked dolls. Right. But in the remake, like, I just feel like he was too old. He didn't really have an attachment. He treated his Chucky doll like crap at first. And even when he had those moments where, he was happy and kind of childlike with it, it didn't feel like a relationship. But M3GAN gives you that. Yeah. And I feel like that's what would have made that particular Chucky so much better if you would have had a child who this doll was like how M3GAN is. It was their friend. It's supposed to be your friend till the end. That's literally what M3GAN was. Yeah. Like you said, they did it so much fucking better.
And I even appreciated the little nuance they had to Katie meeting M3GAN for the first time, that she was hesitant, she kind of backed away like, I don't know what the fuck this is. And then as she just kind of watched her work and drew that picture, she warmed up to her. So it wasn't like, oh my God, I'm so in love with this thing that I don't know what it is. She was just like, I don't know. Yeah. But I'll check it out. And then she warmed up to it. So I felt like that was a more genuine approach to just being like, oh, this is the greatest thing ever. So I appreciated just little touches like that. And again, that's where I worry about a sequel, because I just don't feel like they're going to have to really work hard at making something unique to make it stand apart from either being just another slasher, killer doll movie that we've seen 100 times over. Plus, even if you tried to do a new kid and a new doll, then you recycle the same story over again. So what do you do that makes it stand apart? What makes it work? I hope they really take their time, is all I'm saying.
I feel like there's some cool concepts, but I also feel like it pulls from other types of movies. Like because I feel like in this type of universe with the whole M3GAN doll type thing, freaking big corporations and shit like that. And I could guarantee you that the next step would be to making basically like how iRobot and shit like that is. Like, you're going to make robots that are now adult sized, and they're going to help the parents, and they're going to, help the children and all this kind of stuff. They'll still be a friend, but it will be more of an adult figure who can do kind of adult. Exactly. And if M3GAN took over something like that, and especially if she could do it on a global scale, it'd be kind of Skynet in a way. So they could do almost like a Terminator type thing with M3GAN.
Sure.
So you go from like Child's Play to Terminator.
And then you'd have to stick to the PG-13 model because they'd need the budget for it.
I mean, I feel like you could do that. Yeah. Terminator wasn't super duper gory.
But they were R-rated. Amazing how that works.
Yeah, that's
they made
fucking
so much
weird.
money. I don't know. Our ratings, they're not the kiss of death like some studios like to think they are, but you do rake in more money with PG-13 because then you don't have to worry about parents bringing your kids.
But I also say if a movie is going to be R-rated and that's what it, is marketed as, like Deadpool, it does not need a freaking child family PG-13 bullshit movie.
No, I still would, out of mere curiosity, would love to see that version. The Once Upon a Deadpool where they turned it into a PG-13 movie. I've been curious, but I've never seen it.
I've seen clips of it, and it just...
I know. It's ridiculous.
It's like a highlight reel, but none of the good stuff.
Sure. Well, I've really got nothing more to say about this, unless you do.
I don't really have anything else to say other than go watch it.
Yeah,
all of you horror fans out there, 100%. If you want to check it out, just adults, definitely watch the R-rated. I still feel like we need to watch the PG-13.
Sure. I think we should find somebody who maybe isn't really a horror fiend or anything like that, and be like, oh, this is a pretty good movie. You ought to check it out. And then just kind of introduce them to it. And then that way we can kind of watch it with someone else.
So like your parents.
Yeah.
That's what you're getting at.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Because, I was surprised by this. My dad is not a horror fan at all. Like, I have never seen this man go out of his way to watch horror films. Now, my mom, on the other hand, as weird as this may sound, at one point, she was huge into Stephen King. I feel like that's where I got some of my horror roots from, was from my mom. Because she had books, she liked the movies. So I feel like I got that vibe from her, and then she fell off at some point.
Your dad is like, this man bleeds John Wayne.
Yeah, he's not horror centric at all. However, there was a movie that I just 100% love. May have mentioned on the show before how much I love this movie. Is a movie called Crawl that I saw in theaters. It's about a hurricane that hits Florida, and then alligators get loose and start attacking
Yeah, that
people.
movie creeped me out too.
It blew me away how good it was, because it was a movie that did not deserve to be as good as it was.
Yeah, it really kind of gives you Sharknado vibes in a way.
Yeah. Like, you think, oh man, it's going to be some cheap B-movie garbage, and it's really fucking good.
No, it was really good. It's very suspenseful.
So there was a time that we were sitting around here, may have been a holiday or something like that, or just a gathering or whatever, and I turned it on to watch it, and he was there with me, and he watched it, and he got into it, and I was like, holy shit, my dad's actually enjoying this. And he did. And I was like, wow, okay, so if I can just find the right kind of movie that would kind of get his attention.
Which I will say, he has gone out of his box.
Yeah.
Like, for the longest time, he didn't. Like, he would watch some things. He loves Elvira. Absolutely loves Elvira.
Unlike one Lloyd Kaufman. I love you, Lloyd.
But he has kind of ventured outside of that. Like, he does like the Marvel movies. We've watched them. He's watched Planet of the Apes with us. He's watched
Apes. That was a definite, and I think that was one thing that we kind of bonded over when I was younger too.
So Godzilla. He's watched the Godzilla
that
movies
was
with us.
something I got from him. So I mean, it's not outside the realm of possibility. It's just something more gory. It feels like gore is something he kind of avoids. Not to say that he can't take it. It's just not his thing that he is into.
He watched Game of Thrones.
He did. I don't feel like it's something he gravitates towards.
Oh,
if
no.
the story and everything is good and there just happens to be gore, he'll pass it by. But it's not something he's like, oh man, I've got to see the gore.
Yeah, no. This man still watches Disney movies every now and then, in the sense of not Marvel, but actual children's Disney movies.
But hey, there ain't nothing wrong with that.
Oh, hell no. I still watch freaking Disney movies. I'm ready for the freaking Puss in Boots. I know it's not Disney, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
But no, he definitely watches different things, but at his core, he is Westerns and those types of freaking movies.
Like Yellowstone, Longmire is a show he's long tried to get me to watch, and I'm just like, I don't know what that is, but okay. But he's like, oh, it's a good show. You got to watch it. We'll get to it. But anyway, we got off on a tangent.
No, I think that it'd be I think we should introduce him to M3GAN. I definitely think it needs to be the PG-13 version.
Sure. I think he'd get into it. Because again, it's the story. That's the key. It's not just some random doll killing folk. There's the story behind it. I think they would both dig it.
Yeah.
So anyway, Horror Ramblers, I know we went off on a tangent there, but let us know what you thought of M3GAN, whether you watched it rated, unrated, whatever your preference is. I honestly don't feel like it makes that big of a difference, but I am kind of a gore hound, so I'd prefer the R-rated. I don't know, just something about it felt... See, she's sneezing over here.
Sorry.
But you can let us know what you think about it on Twitter at Horror Ramblings. And if you've got more to say about M3GAN and the tweet just won't do, it's M3GAN, by the way. I don't know why I keep saying M3GAN. You can send us an email at horrorramblings@gmail.com. If you want to discuss horror with like-minded individuals, you can join our Facebook group where I'm posting trivia every day. And you can get a little trivia bit. You can also join us in our Ramblers room on Discord. You can find us on Instagram, where we do horror images whenever we feel like it. Maybe I'll post something up this week with this. And if you're feeling generous and you want to support the show financially, you can head on over to patreon.com/pencil and paper productions. Whew, I'm getting tongue-tied. Chuck and a buck can help this show grow, along with others like Inspired by Weeboo, where you can get episodes a week early if you are so inclined. If you listen to anime or watch anime or whatever. Anyway, help the show grow by leaving a review on your favorite podcasting app. Tell your friends to find us on their favorite podcasting platform as well. And if you're on Spotify, look at our weekly questions and polls. Leave us that 5-star review there. All that helps the show grow, and it's much appreciated. Finally, if you want a central hub for all things, pencilpaperproductions.com/horror-ramblings. Links are in the show notes for your convenience. And remember, stay spooky out there.
This has been the Horror Ramblings podcast. Join us next time for even more.
This has been a Pencil and Paper Podcast Network production.